Welcome in, newest edition of Caught Stealing, the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Baseball podcast. I'm your host, Colby Conway, at Colby R. Conway over on X. And with me here is Matt Selz. You can give him a follow over on X at the Selz Man, TheSelzMan. Matt, let's not bury the lead here. Let's get into it. What in the world is happening to the fantasy baseball pitching landscape, predominantly with starters? And this right here.
Yep. This general your second UCL, right? Well, maybe for some people it's their first. I don't know.
Yep.
But fun fact, you have two because your ligament in your thumb is a UCL as well.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're R.A. Dickey and then you've only got one because
Yeah.
he doesn't have one in his pitching elbow.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Tangent over. I have no idea what's happening with elbows. It's not a good time though if you're an elbow for sure. They're pretty valuable real estate and they don't seem to be holding up well. We've had a bunch of notable elbow injuries. In fact, a guy who suffered an elbow injury 2 years ago just retired from one. Steven Strasburg officially retired.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately,
Banners fly forever, though. It sucks, but banners fly forever, and that was a hell of a year.
It was unbelievable. Yeah, it's not great. Obviously, Spencer Strider, we still don't know for sure, other than UCL damage, but we don't know for sure. It's probably looking like he's going for a second Tommy John in 5 years. So,
because the first one was in college, right? It was when he was in college.
So. Yeah, I believe so. But it's been an interesting time on Twitter, man, debating people who really want to see the pitch clock go. They really are attributing this uptick in pitcher injuries to only the pitch clock. I don't know that that's the case. Like, first of all, the pitch clock's been around for a year and change, right? Last year, first year of pitch clock. We are, a week and a half into the MLB season?
Give or take.
Basically, the regular season. So it's been 28 total weeks of the pitch clock in baseball. Not enough of a sample size. Not to mention, if you go to my Twitter, you'll see some tweets I had. There's some great follows who had great data. Mike Kurland is one of them who had some great data. I think it was MLB data analysis I credited them in one of the tweets. But basically, the rate of elbow injuries has been going up in baseball since the early 2000s. So it's a 20-year problem. So I don't think the pitch clock, is it contributing a little bit? Maybe. But here's what I think it stems from that nobody's talking about. I think it comes from PEDs and not the pitchers taking PEDs. I think it's from the hitters taking PEDs because the pitchers decided, you know what the best way to get out a human Hulk is? Throw a ball past him. Throw it harder. Make it spin more so it's more unhittable. It's not just 93. It's 93 with 19 inches of break, right? It's 98 with 24 inches of break, right? The data on spin rates and average, the percent of pitches thrown over 2,400 RPM has been going up every year. The average fastball velocity has gone up basically every year from the early 2000s until this year. The number of pitchers drafted with already having had elbow reconstruction surgery has gone up basically every year since the mid 2010s, early 2010s. So it can't be the pitch clock. The pitch clock wasn't in then, right? It's because human bodies are not designed to throw a baseball that hard, that consistently, max effort, and spin it. Tyler Glasnow had a great thought about the sticky stuff, which I do think takes a role, is because they're over gripping things. Like, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see I'm not holding a baseball, but if you tense your hand up more because you'd have to put more force on a baseball, you can feel your forearm strain. Even though I'm not a pitcher, I'm not throwing a baseball, you can physically feel it strain. Now imagine throwing that thing 95. It's going to do a lot of damage. So I just think we got to get guys to slow down. And I know that that's a dirty thing to say because everybody loves the velo. We all see these pitching clips. Oh, this guy's throwing a 102-mile-an-hour sinker. First of all, it won't sink going that fast. But the human body is going to continue to break if we keep throwing baseballs the way they're throwing.
Yes, and that's ultimately I think I kind of settle in on this. It's that we see it all the time. You hear it a lot around the NFL draft. It's like these guys are bigger, faster, stronger. He's a
Right.
physical freak. He's a specimen. He's 6'6", 280 pounds, runs a 4.4 40, and it's elite athleticism. So when they go to make these cuts, at some point it's going to happen, and we're
Right. The
seeing it
force
in
on the
baseball.
ligaments is just too much.
And that's what we're seeing in baseball. Because you think there's a couple things at play. If we look at non-four-seam fastballs, and I
Right.
guess technically you could even say it with them too. How do you get it to move more?
You spin it.
Correct. You don't just generate. How do you generate spin?
You put force on it. You grip it more, and you put more force on a ball, and you torque your elbow and your shoulder more because that's where, like to throw a slider and a curveball, you generally wait and get behind the ball, get on top of it, and snap with your elbow and your wrist.
Mm.
There's added force there.
You don't just create. You don't. I mean, I guess you don't just create. I'm gonna do everything the exact same, and this one will have a 200 higher spin rate. That's probably not the case unless you're doing something wrong or not of max effort up front.
Correct.
But here's the thing. Remember a couple of years ago, and this goes to what you're saying as well. A couple years ago, well, more than a couple years ago, Roldis Chapman came in triple digits, and it was like it didn't matter where he threw it; it was going by the hitter, and he could
Right.
live off that. 100 down the middle now is not a problem.
Right.
It does not. That doesn't get people out anymore.
Well, it's a
No,
problem for the umps because Angel Hernandez misses those calls all the time.
well, apparently he doesn't
Well,
even
he
know
did
if a guy's
today.
on the rubber or not. Like, I mean,
Yeah. We're recording Sunday. He missed the ball dead middle that would have been a strike. Called it a ball.
yeah, that guy's a whole
Yeah.
conversation in and of itself. But like at this point now, 100 down the middle is nothing. These guys
Correct.
continue to drive it. It doesn't matter. So like, offensive games have developed. Those on the mound have had to develop as well, and it has led to this obsession, which I'll call it, with velocity,
Mm-hmm.
spin rates, and trying to get hitters out because that's what it has to be. And like 100 that you can paint will do damage. That is going to, you'll be able to get hitters out. 100 down the middle, 102 down the middle isn't anything crazy anymore. I don't know. Is the pitch clock to blame at all? I don't think you're saying it's free of blame because
Correct.
there
I
is an
think
element of doing it max effort and then 20
and
seconds later max effort again.
reducing the recovery
But
time.
it is
I do
not
think
the isolated it is not the 100% reason. I
right.
don't believe it to
It's
be.
not like it was a flat line and the pitch clock came in and there's a massive jump.
Correct.
Is there a tick
Correct.
up? Yes, but Strider was injured in college before a pitch clock. Why? Because he's spinning like this year. He adds a curveball. You didn't need to. That's a high spin rate, high stress pitch on your elbow, and now all of a sudden his elbow gets
And he
sore.
brings it back this year a little bit more frequently too, and now stuff comes
Right.
up. I mean, I'm just
Like
again speculation, but
yeah. I as I put it on Twitter, pitchers are not being taught to pitch. They're being taught speed and spin.
mhm.
Right? They're not taught really pitch sequencing. They're not taught here's how I get a guy out at 93 instead of 97. Brandon McCarthy had a great tweet, former actual Diamondbacks starter. Curse me, I'm wearing the hat, but pitched for a few different teams. Brandon McCarthy said, referenced Justin Verlander, who early in his career, you would watch his starts and he would be at like 91, 93 early in the start, right? And then he would build. And then by the seventh inning, he's pumping 97 because he's controlled his body. He saved his energy. And he knew, hey, if I can get guys out at 93, by the time 97 comes, it now looks like 105 because they've been seeing 93, right?
Mhm.
And you wonder, hey, gee, how could this guy pitch so long? I mean, obviously now he's been injured, but he's 40. He didn't get injured in Detroit. He didn't get injured for much of his time in Houston, right?
Mhm.
It's because he learned to pitch, right? Same with, look at Maddox is a bad example because of the strike zone, but look at Smoltz and Glavine and Pettit and Musina and sure, there were guys like Clemens and Pedro. There's always going to be elite dudes, right?
Mhm.
There's always going to be the Nolan Ryan for 7 other dudes who aren't Nolan Ryan, right? But Musina's in the Hall of Fame because he learned to pitch. Tom Glavine is in the Hall of Fame because he learned to pitch. John Smoltz is in the Hall of Fame because he could start and relieve and learn to pitch and was filthy, right? So I think that we are at a point where these kids need to, and it needs to start at the kids level, need to learn how to pitch and not throw. Dr. James Andrews, the preeminent elbow fixer, said the max velocity that a high school junior's elbow can sustain is 90 miles an hour. The problem is college programs and MLB scouts don't scout guys who are throwing 90 miles an hour junior year. They think they have no upside. There's no projectability. They can't be a frontline starter. They're not a Garrett Cole. They're not a Paul Skeens, who, by the way, he keeps pumping him in like he is. We're looking at a future issue here, right? But if the doctors are telling you that's what you should be doing, no wonder things are breaking. Like it, I don't know. It people aren't going to love that. You know, we're campaigning for guys to not throw as fast. But you know what? Trust your defense, man. That's why they're out there. They're not out there to scoop up 100-mile-an-hour ground balls every sixth hitter. I could deal with 150 strikeouts out of 200 innings and a dude staying healthy as compared to 300 strikeouts in 135 innings because the dude struck everybody out and couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah. Or do you think it's a matter of, hey, and to keep this guy healthy, 60 pitches, 4
I don't
innings.
know, because
And the new starters are now going 4 innings.
I think the problem with that is if you shrink a guy's workload, he won't pace himself, right? It's the same reason why we see a bump in velo for starters who go to the bullpen, right? I don't have to throw 80 pitches. I only got to throw 15. So I could go 99 on a pitch that would normally only be 94 because I've got 1/6 the amount of pitches I got to worry about, right? Because the other part of the chart that I saw showed, obviously this is borne out by innings, and us fantasy players have been very keen to this over the last while, but the percentage of starts that are less than 7 innings is going through the roof. So guys aren't lasting long and they're still getting injured more. So I think you got to teach these guys to not throw max effort. Like if a guy can't throw 98, don't make him throw 98. Like don't teach him, and I'm not directly blaming Driveline, but like Shane Bieber went to Driveline and now his elbow's busted because he went and got back up to 98 instead of sticking at 95. CC Sabathia is a great example because he was a power pitcher early in his career and then he lost it, and then he extended his career another 4 or 5 years because he figured out how to pitch at a lower velocity. You can get guys out if you set them up. Learn the art of pitching, not the art of throwing really hard.
Well, and go back to Chapman. 102 down the middle is so much different than 102 paint and black on the corners.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
I mean, you could say that about any velo. 93 on the corner is way harder to hit than 93 dead middle. Right? You were a former catcher. You'd rather see your guy nip the corners and get a guy to either sit on it because he thinks it's outside and you get the black, or he reaches and swings and then you can go further out because he swung at that. So let's get him to go further out, right? Same way I would get a lefty hitter out as a lefty pitcher. You put him inside the first one, you put it a little further out than the second one, and then you go with like an 80-mile-an-hour slider that sweeps all the way to the outside. He's going to think it's a strike, and then he swings and misses, and boom, you got him out, and you haven't had top 93.
Yeah. And let me, obviously, so Spencer Strider, we're waiting to hear for any update with his UCL. We got Shane Bieber, who's going to be out for the year with Tommy John. Obviously, Yuri's out for the year with Tommy John as well. So let me ask you this. I want to bring it back to fantasy baseball and selfishly allow me to segue into our next segment, which we'll talk about here. But 2025 fantasy baseball drafts.
I think we see people sit on starters like quarterbacks.
Okay. My question was going to be, do we see a starter in the first round? And I think you answered that. Because here's the argument to be made. If you have someone who's elite,
So if Corbin Burns stays healthy,
and that
sorry,
was the
Baltimore,
argument.
not trying to jinx you. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
but that was the argument for Strider this year. He's in a class of his own. He's elite. He's a difference maker. He's worth drafting in the first round. Now, obviously, we had this company you couldn't quite maybe you couldn't forecast this, but yeah. So like a guy like Corbin Burns, if he dominates again this year, and he does fine, is he going to be a guy we take in the first round, or do you think we're at the point where, hey, I don't know what to do with starters, and it's too much of a risk. I don't think any starters go in the first round next year.
I don't think any starters go in the first round.
I'm starting to come to that camp as well.
Because I'm still of the belief I know we're talking fantasy baseball, but fantasy football, the draft is around the corner, right? There's always the argument the running quarterbacks rack up so many points they don't really put you that far ahead, and what you lose out in the other positions, you can make the argument you could have sat a draft in like a round or two and still gotten a guy who's close, right?
Mm-hmm.
We already saw people this year going 6 straight bats and then hitting pitching in 7, 8, 9. James Grande and I did that in FSGA. We did not hit starters very early, and our guys are still healthy for the most part, right? Justin Steele, hammy, different thing. Okay. But look, if the assumption is everybody's going to get injured, and you're only getting a max of like 150 innings from everybody, then on a per inning basis, does it make any sense to reach for the elite guys?
Right.
If you're still going to need a bunch of starts from the other guys to fill in innings that you may need. Like, I don't know. I don't envision myself taking a starter very early next year. I just don't get because if your mid-round guy gets injured, you can go. He's a lot easier to replace. Like a buddy of mine kept Spencer Strider for a ridiculous value in our keeper auction league, right?
Mm-hmm.
His season's basically done. Now we're in more of a draft and hold. So you were never going to replace Spencer Strider. But still, even if you're in a fab league, you're not replacing Spencer Strider. There's not a single arm that's coming up. Not even if the Pirates called up Paul Skeens tomorrow, would he replace Spencer Strider? There's no way.
I am in that camp as well. I don't believe I'll be taking starters early next year. And obviously all the arm injuries and elbow injuries and Tommy John reports have been quite the, I guess I'll say, surprise here to begin the 2024 season. But Matt, let's talk a little bit some other early season fantasy baseball surprises, that is. More so looking at some players. And again, it's a very small sample size. So inherently, we're going to try to not overreact with some of the good or the bad here, but simply, hey, let's call a spade a spade. It is what it is. This is what we've seen. This is what we talk about. So we both did a hitter and a pitcher here. We'll move right through this. And Matt, who's kind of your early season fantasy baseball surprise who happens to be a hitter and who also happened to make an appearance or two in the fantasy baseball draft guide that we did here at Fantasy Alarm?
His initial spell out ton, because there's been a ton to like about this guy. Tyler O'Neill. I know I got a bunch of questions about him this most recent waiver wire period in the Fantasy Alarm Discord. Most of the time I told people to pick up Tyler O'Neill unless there was a different option, depending on, it wasn't just a blind trust. It was, hey, who's the rest of your roster, whatnot. But he's been great for Boston. He's been back to kind of what we thought he could be, right? And he's starting the dialogue of, is there a problem in St. Louis with how they're teaching guys to hit or not hit or approach baseball? Because it seems like everybody that leaves St. Louis gets better when they leave St. Louis. So again, early, he's been playing a lot of pitcher-friendly or hitter-friendly parks. But he's filling up all the stat categories you want him to. He's got, 4 home runs already. He's hitting really, really nicely. The triple slash is fantastic. He's walking a ton, an absolute ton. He's walking way more than he's striking out. And there's very little doubt there's no way he's getting replaced in the Boston lineup. There's injuries aside. He's not going anywhere. So he is a very nice surprise to start the year for me.
They will not take him out of the lineup. I'll go to actually Mr. Tyler O'Neill's rival in the American League East. I'm going with Anthony Volpe. Yes, 420 hitting, 400 plus average, OPS up over 1,000, couple of stolen bases. All of that's fine and dandy. All I want to know is where in the heck is all this contact coming from?
You want to know why?
I would love to know why.
He's been working with Juan Soto in the offseason.
Well, I don't know if you're saying that in jest or serious, but
no,
I'll believe
I've heard multiple reports from the Yes Network folks, from Yankees beat writers. I watched spring training coverage and early season coverage. The two of them hang out in the dugout in between, during the games, and then they've been working together. They're, I believe they're both Dominican, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a bond there. But yeah, he's been talking to Juan Soto quite a bit.
Okay, well, here from last year, and again, yeah, and we're in a smaller sample size, but
correct.
Zone contact per Baseball Savant is up over 92%. Last year was at 80%. Chase rate last year 28%. So far this year 20%. He's swinging less. His whiff rate last year was 28.1%. This year it is 12.5%. That's nearly a 16 percentage point drop. And if we're going to take that into percentiles, 33rd percentile whiff rate last year. Juan Soto comes into town. Volpe now has a 95th percentile whiff rate this season. Is it all Juan Soto? The Soto magic being sprinkled over that Yankee locker room, or at least with Anthony Volpe?
Volpe's really talented,
for sure,
maturing, but
I mean, this is development and maturation with like hitting a turbo button in the old like racing games. You're just cruising turbo, and you're off. Like his maturation development has been insane this year. Great surprise. He's not going to hit 400 plus the rest of the way. I'm very confident in that, but I do not envision a world where he hits 209 again like he did last year. He could actually be a 2020 guy this year with a not so terrible batting average. So a lot to like.
Like a 5-tool shortstop, which is very, very nice.
A lot to like with Anthony Volpe. Holy contact is what I wrote in our show sheet because that's how I felt in the moment. Matt, you and I both went a little giddy on hitters, and then we went a little down in the dumps on pitchers. So I'll kick it over to you.
Crapping on pitchers, but my surprise, not a good one here. If you go to Fangraphs and you search pitchers in terms of stat leaders, and you filter by WAR. Guy with the lowest WAR, Kenta Maeda. That's who I'm going with. He was a guy who we were very high on at the start of the year. Mm-hmm. Second half last year looked fantastic. Thought carrying it over to a pitcher's park in Detroit and mixing it up with Tariq Skubal, that guy's been electric. That guy's been, I can't really say a surprise because I've been on him for like 4 years as a prospect. Maeda's been the opposite. I know we were just talking about don't want dudes throwing quite as fast. Okay, but Kenta, you can pick it up a little. His average four-seam fastball velocity is right now, if it stayed where it was, would be the lowest of his career. It's less than 90 miles an hour on average. Granted, it's 9 innings. It's 2 starts. Not great. Expected ERA, 14.85. Again, 9 innings, but still. You don't want an expected ERA of 14.85. That's not great either. FIP is better, 9.53. Okay. Expected FIP, 5.84. We're getting closer, right? Still not great, though, if he finishes the year with that. So, he's not striking people out. He's walking a bunch of dudes. So we'll see. Maybe he's working on some stuff still. Maybe the colder weather in Detroit has caused some problems. Maybe them missing a game or two because the entire Met series was basically one big postponement. I don't know, but it's not been a great start for Kenta Maeda so far.
Go check out Kenta Maeda's Baseball Savant page, and with his velocity, go look at his pitch heat maps and see where a lot of these pitches are, and you'll see why there are the early season
his
struggles.
Heat map matches the outline of Colby's in my name. If you're watching this right now, it's not great. It's the opposite of what you want.
Yeah, not very good. For me, I'm going with Michael King, guy I did like coming into the year, but all I talked about Volpe, it was holy contact. It's Michael King, holy walks. 11 walks. to begin the year for him. He had a 5.5% walk rate as a starter last year. He's at 17.2% through 2 starts this season. Taking a look at the numbers, fewer whiffs. He's not getting ahead of hitters. And there's been a massive drop in his swings outside of the zone. So is it just a little bit of early season, maybe a pitch mix adjusting with a new catcher in terms of trying to generate more swings, and it's just not happening out of the zone yet? Is it something with his pitches? San Diego has tweaked his arsenal a little bit in terms of his pitch mix, but the two, if I'm not mistaken, they bumped up his four-seam fastball and changeup usage, and he's hit the zone well with those pitches, but not generating swings outside of the zone. If he's not getting hitters to leave the zone, less whiffs, not getting some of those freebie strikes. So Michael King, I just want to kind of keep an eye on him. I'm not dropping him. I'm not overreacting too much yet, but I mean, if you think AJ Puck's walking a lot of hitters, I would not go look at Michael King, because Michael King actually has more walks than AJ Puck.
Yeah, it looks like San Diego has brought back his slider and cutter, which he hadn't thrown either of those since 2021. This according to Fangraphs. They cut his curveball percentage, upped his changeup percentage, and dropped the fastball percentage. I mean, I get you're moving him more to a starting role and less of kind of a swing guy like the Yankees had him, but there's a reason why they probably cut the slider and cutter. They weren't working last time he used them, so I don't know why we're bringing them back.
Yeah, I would agree there.
I mean, I know 5 pitches is tougher to hit than 3, but if you're only throwing 2 of them well, then it doesn't really matter, right?
Yep. I would agree there. So we talked about not overreacting to some of these guys, but let's talk about some other ones that we might want to overreact on a little bit here as we get into the season a little bit more. So here we go, Matt. Should we overreact to? And we're going to start with first baseman. His name's popped up in the Discord a little bit that we have. And if you are not an All-Pro subscriber today, you're not a member of our Discord, become an All-Pro subscriber today. Join the Fantasy Alarm Discord. Ask your questions, keepers, trades. I doubt there's any draft questions anymore, but who the heck knows what's going on out there. I believe ESPN still lets you set up fantasy leagues now, so maybe you do have a draft upcoming. Maybe you're
right for ESPN.
Yeah, and maybe your league has honestly said, screw the first couple of weeks of the season. We're going to do a redraft because none of us have enough pitchers to even fill out a lineup. So maybe that's going on. But Vinnie Pasquantino, first baseman for the Kansas City Royals, opening up this year, hitting just 121 and OPS below 400, which is not very good, I would say. And when you look at some of his numbers, nothing's really jumping off the page too much. No real barrel rate, average exit velocity down a little bit, launch angles down, a lot of ground balls. Still not striking out. He's still willing to take a walk. So I guess if you're in an OBP league, he's still bad, but a little bit more palatable. But someone like Vinnie Pasquantino, who missed some time, if not most of the year last year, with a shoulder ailment that kept him out, I believe it was shoulder. What do we make of Pasquantino? Are we dropping him because we spent somewhat reasonable draft capital on him? Is he a drop candidate, or is he someone we're willing to give a little bit more time to try to get through an early season slump?
I'd still give him a little more time, right? None of his numbers jump off the page. He's still walking almost as much as he strikes out. Granted, 9 games, so smaller plate appearance totals there, but you know, he's up where he normally is for walk rate, so that's fine. If you're walking, you're going to get on, means you're seeing pitches. He's not just swinging at crazy stuff. It's not like he's got like a 45% strikeout rate. The expected batting average is almost 200. Again, not great, but part of that is his ground ball rate is too high. If he starts getting, maybe it's, he's not fully trusting his shoulder yet to like really uncork it and drive the ball. Once he starts to do that, the launch angle will come up, ground balls will drop, he'll get more hits, batting average will come up, OBP will come up, counting stats will come up. So I'm not dropping him yet. If we're talking about this like 3 weeks from now, then yeah, probably I would sort it out, but not
we'll have that conversation then. Another name that a lot of fantasy managers such as myself are waiting for him to get eligibility behind the dish is Henry Davis, the outfielder last year, catcher this season for the Pirates. He started off, the strikeouts are there. There hasn't been a lot of pop. He does have a double-digit walk rate. That's about his only saving grace right now, but no home runs, no stolen bases, does have 2 extra base hits, but that's really all to show for Henry Davis thus far. Team did sign Joey Bart. They also have Yasmani Grandal eventually, maybe coming back once his foot gets healed. From there, what do we make of Henry Davis? Because right now we can still only play him in the outfield. And if not mistaken, we're still about, if your league takes about 20 games for him behind the dish to get catcher eligibility,
About
we're still like
13.
13 or 14 away, and he's not catching every single day. That's for sure. So say he catches 4 games a week, we're still basically almost a month away from him getting catcher eligibility. So are we overreacting about Henry Davis?
This one's tougher for me. I think. Well, okay. So you're the Pirates fan. Are you overreacting to Henry Davis?
I am trying to hold on to him. If I'm in a league where basically I drafted him to be my catcher and I'm rolling out like a Connor Wong type right now, or just someone to get me through to when he gets catcher eligibility, I'm really trying to hold on to him in leagues. I think you'll figure it out. There's still a lot of potential offensively with him. He's a very toolsy guy. I am trying to hold on. If you rostered him basically to be your backup catcher, you're not playing him much in the outfield right now anyway, because honestly, right now he's borderline unplayable
Yeah.
in fantasy formats. And you're basically just waiting for him to be like your backup catcher. You could probably add someone with a little bit more value, but if you waited on catcher, you drafted Henry Davis to basically be your catcher when that time comes, I'm really trying to hold on to him, but I cannot play him in the outfield right now. He is not worth an outfield spot.
Correct. If you have a bench spot that you are willing to eat, I would keep Henry Davis there. I think
Yep.
what's happening is he's trying to learn the catching position at the major league level.
Yep.
He's trying to learn the staff because a couple of those guys he's going to have to learn how to catch, right? Mitch Keller's not going anywhere. Young guy, signed 5-year, $77 million extension. Roansy, I think they're still trying to figure out if he's a long-term guy, but they're figuring that out, right?
Yep.
A lot of these dudes he's never met before, so he's trying to figure out their rotation. And the Pirates are winning right now too, so there's extra pressure to keep the pitching staff going. So I think that's a lot of stuff, right? He's learning basically. Yes, he came up as a catcher, but once you take him out of catching for basically a whole year up at the major league level, and then you put him back behind the plate, there's a whole lot of nuances to that position. It's why catchers take, generally speaking, the longest to develop as prospects, right? It's why Adley Rutschman spent the better part of a year and a half in the minor leagues. Even though he was the number 1 pick, he had spent 4 years in college. He was a generational catcher. He had to learn all of the nuances of the pro game. And then the offense comes, right? Last year, by the way, if we're talking about his bat in the 62 games he played in the outfield, 7 homers, 3 steals, a 213 average. Struck out almost 28% of the time, 27% of the time, walked almost 10%. So it's not terribly far off of what he's doing now. The only difference is he has an entire other position he's going to learn. So I'm going to hold him. I think there's upside there. He's a former number 1 pick for a reason. They believe in him. But yeah, you're going to have to eat it till you at least get catcher eligibility, and then those stats don't hurt you so badly.
Exactly. And the saving grace is when he has made contact, at least the numbers, average exit velocities up a little bit, launch angles up in a pretty good spot. So you gotta buy your time. And right now his numbers in the outfield position really, really hurt.
Yes.
They hurt a little less when you can put him behind the dish. And especially once he
Correct.
gets hot, you will be good there. And the last one, Matt, here, let's crap on some more pitchers because that's been kind of the theme here. Jose Leclerc in Texas. He's made a couple of appearances this year. He only has 1 appearance where he hasn't allowed a run, but 96th percentile whiff rate, strikeout rates in the 85th percentile. He's walking the world and seems to not be able to generate a ground ball. David Robertson's been pitching pretty well for the most part in the bullpen there for Texas. Leclerc does have 1 save on the year, but double-digit ERA and a whip above 2. How should we overreact to the start from Leclerc? And basically by saying that, am I saying should we overreact and should David Robertson be the 9th inning or the relieving option in Texas that we want on our teams?
I think David Robertson should be the relieving option you want. I think that's where the saves are going to come from. I don't know what's going on with Jose Leclerc. to be honest. He's always seemed to be kind of a mental space cadet a little bit sometimes. He does have a history. I mean, people keep trying to peg him as the closer. You want to guess how many saves he has as a career high in a season?
Low teens.
14.
That's low teens.
Yeah. 12 the year before that, then 14, and then he's had, I mean, 1 in 2020, but whatever. 7 in 2022, 4 in 2023, and he's somehow managed to save this year. So I'm not sure why people thought he was going to be the locked in closing target. The only thing I'll say about Jose Leclerc is that relievers ERAs and ratios and percentages tend to be very skewed because they're only pitching max of like 4 outs at a time. Right?
Yep.
Who the heck did I have? I had a reliever on my team yesterday who put up 108.5 ERA.
That's pretty good.
108.5. Like, because he came on, got 2/3 of an inning pitched, and gave up 3 runs. It's like 180 ERA.
Yep.
Right? It's going to take him 6 outings of perfect relieving to get that back to a manageable thing. So there is that. It's working a little bit against him, but I don't know. I am not comfortable with. I didn't touch Jose Leclerc come draft season. I don't really want him.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's clouded, and there's a bunch of other dudes that they like.
For Leclerc's sake, looking at his career numbers, as the months have gone on, March, April ERA 3.86, 3.90 in May, 4.27 in June, and then sub 3 in July, August, and September, actually getting down to as low as 2.34. So he's a little bit of a slow starter. So
drop him, and then when the All-Star break comes around, pick him up. People are going to laugh at you, and then ride his 2.5 ERA for the last 2.5 months of the season.
I think that is the plan, and I guess we'll call that a little prediction for us moving forward for the rest of the way. But of course, just like we did last week for last week's Monday episode, we'll do a bold prediction or a best bet for the week ahead. I do think I almost nailed Pittsburgh. If I'm not mistaken, they did take the series from Baltimore. Now I'm second guessing myself.
I think so. They did not sweep the Nats, though.
I know that's the one that did me in, but.
Which that was the one the day that your bold prediction didn't come true.
Yeah, Pirates did take the series from.
Did the Tigers play enough to technically take a series from the Mets? Because they had a lot of those games got moved.
They did get moved, but it looks like Tigers 5-0. They took 2 of 3, so
they did lose the second game of the doubleheader. I know.
Yep. So I was half correct. You were spot on. So let's see if we can do it again this week. So, Matt, for this scoring period, this week in baseball that is and will be, what is your bold prediction or best bet for the week ahead?
I'm putting good juju out into the world, right? We spent the entire podcast crapping on pitching injuries. Here's what I'm going to say. There are no new elbow injuries this week. Okay? We already know if we get clarification on what Spencer Strider's injury is, it does not count because it happened last week. This is Colby and I agreed to this before the pod. It's not just me making this up on the fly. No new elbow injury. So somebody other than the ones we already know about has to get injured for this not to happen. So hopefully we can go a week in fantasy baseball without a pitcher blowing an elbow.
Let's hope. And Matt, let me give you my bold prediction for the week. Let me read you these numbers, and you have no clue. I mean, you kind of might have an idea of this, but
it's about the White Sox. I don't know where we're going, though.
Sure is. So the White Sox this year, I'll just tell you what it is. Runs scored in games. White Sox 0, 6, 2, 0, 3, 1, 1, 0, and 3.
Are they going to hit 4 runs this week?
No. The White, especially with Eloy on the IL for a bit, and Luis Robert is going to be out for what I believe I saw is going to be months, not weeks.
They said it was similar to the 2021 hip injury, which kept him out. I think it was
68 games. It was nearly 70 games.
Yeah, it was like 89 days or something.
Yep. Yeah. So they are gone. So no, I'm glad you asked. Okay. No, White Sox do not score 4 runs in a game this week. They got a 3-game set with the Guardians, and then the Reds come to town. So, yep, this will be If they were to do, they're not going to score more than 4 runs in a game. They might get to 3, and it might be against
season. They may go all season without scoring 4 runs in a game.
They won't score 4 runs till Luis Robert comes back. That's actually a pretty bold prediction. That's not going to happen. But this week, they will not score more than 3 runs in a game. They may score 3, but they will not hit 4. Get those unders this week for White Sox team totals.
Yep.
Ooh, that's going to be interesting. I might keep a note and see how low their team total gets in any given game. My guess is that the books are going to put them at 3.5 a lot.
Is there a under here that we can get for like Monday real quick?
Nothing like doing this live.
We are doing this live. We are checking live odds.
All right, MLB. So we're recording this. As we're recording this, it's Sunday night. Probably don't even have.
I see. Let's see here. I see Monday. The White Sox do not have odds for Monday's game, so this bodes well for you. I don't see totals. I don't see totals for the White Sox Guardians game. It's like the only one I don't see for Monday. So good job.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's pretty much what it's going to be. I'm going to see if Oh, good. And they don't even have a listed starter. They're going up against Tristan McKenzie. That's at least what it has as we're going off here. So White Sox less than 4 runs every single game this week. That is my bold prediction. Make sure you head over to fantasyalarm.com. Howard Bender wrote up an article about waiver wire pickup. So if you need some bats or arms for the week ahead, take a look there. Give Matt Selz a follow over on X at the Selzman. I'm at Colby R. Conway. Head over to fantasyalarm.com. Become an all-pro subscriber today. So Selz, myself, anybody else we got here at Fantasy Alarm can answer any questions that you've got in the Discord. Fantasy Baseball Injury Report will be out as well. So make sure you're checking that out and all the great content over at fantasyalarm.com. Make sure you tune in midweek sometime on Thursday. Selz and I'll drop the midweek episode. We're going to talk some more fantasy baseball news and notes, hopefully no injuries. And then, of course, we'll give you our weekend streamer and waiver wire pickups. This past week, it was Steven Matz and Carlos Carrasco. And as gross as it sounded, you actually may have been okay.
You may have been okay.
You may have been okay with some numbers there.
About should somebody roster Carrasco for the rest of no.
Let's talk about that Thursday because the answer is no. But we'll
a streamer. Let's not roll back. We're not going back to 2014.
Streamer. He was in the weekend streamer portion, not the waiver wire pickup section.
Correct.
So key distinction to be made there. But give Selz a follow at the Selzman. I'm at Colby R. Conway, and we'll see you later this week with the newest edition of Caught Stealing.